All right, well, we're going to kick off. It is just about 12:02, and we have a lot of content we want to share today. So we're going to get started. And, as everybody continues to join us, welcome. We are so excited that you are here with us today for our presentation of The Future is Feelings. I'm Jennifer Janis. I am the president of Pophouse. And for anybody who is not familiar with who we are and what we do, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about what our team is made up of and the work that we're focusing on, and then we'll dive into three fantastic presentations that we have today. So for a little bit of context, Pophouse is a commercial interior design firm. We are focused on strategic and thoughtful interior, environmental, graphic, and industrial design. We work on full scope projects and really start with the strategy and understanding the need before we move into the design aspects of the project. And we really look at how our projects can be unconventional and human-centric. And during this year and this particular time, the human-centric piece has become so important. And back in March, when we all pivoted to different work environments, we really looked at this as an opportunity to explore and start to understand, what does this mean for the working world? What changes are happening really as a result of how much we learned how to work remotely, how to work virtually, how to present virtually, and what does this mean for how design is going to change in the future? That exploration has exposed us to a lot of new research, new ideas that we're implementing into current projects, and that we're looking forward in future projects, how we can really increase well-being in multiple different environments and how design can help support those initiatives. And so one of the ways that we are looking at continuously exposing ourselves to new ideas is making sure that as a team, we are being curious. We're constantly looking for new inspiration and new ways of doing things. And we developed in 2019 a partnership with Cranbrook Academy of Art, where we started to connect with a fellowship program where Pophouse and Cranbrook work together to identify a fellowship student who then comes and works closely with our team. And really the purpose of it is that we're sharing ideas. We're exploring new ways of thinking. It's exposing our Pophouse team to things that we don't see when we're in client meetings, and also helping to work very closely with Cranbrook and the 3D MFA program to then also show students in that program new ideas and ways of thinking that we're actually implementing into projects today. So that's kind of the overall context for some of the things that we're going to be exploring today. I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy Feehan, who is a design director on our team. Chrissy has a background in industrial design, so she works on almost every project and really folds in all of the custom elements, the leadership, and how we really tailor the work that we're doing and customize it to exactly what our clients need and what their experience is. So Chrissy, take it away, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Jennifer. And again, thank you guys for being here. This event is a highlight of the work our industrial and environmental graphic design teams have been working on over the past few months. Understanding the importance that these two fields have on the built environment is important for the future of work. Our team has been able to successfully impact spaces and the lives of those working in those spaces through an empathetic and strategic approach. That being said, I am so honored to introduce you to the presenters that we have today. In between each presenter, we'll have time for 1 to 2 questions, and then at the end, we'll have additional time for questions as well. Please feel free to put those in the chat. Along the way, we'll be monitoring those. So first up, we have Forrest Huddies. Forrest is our Pophouse Fellow and Cranbrook 3D MFA candidate. So Cranbrook, or Forrest?
Hi everyone. Thanks everyone for coming today. My name is Forrest Hudes. I had the pleasure of being the Cranbrook Pop House Fellow this summer. And first, I just want to say a big thank you to Jennifer and to Chrissy and everyone at Pop House for having me and for sponsoring the fellowship. It really is a unique and awesome opportunity for us at the school to connect with the professional world in Detroit here. And also thank you for all the conversations we had this summer and for like reimagining the fellowship completely as everything was changed this summer. You can see here a couple examples of my work over the past year. So I am in the second year of my MFA at Cranbrook in the 3D design department. My background as an artist is in woodworking and furniture design, and my research interests are in critical queer and feminist theory and how they relate to design and design culture. So that's sort of where I was coming from, coming into Pop House. So I started my fellowship in early June, which at that point, Pop House, as Jennifer was saying, was really deep in these conversations and investigations around the future of work. And so I came in and started sitting on those conversations, and they were talking about sort of the like immediate future of work in terms of logistics and safety and going back into a shared work environment. And then also the sort of like longer term cultural implications of the future of work. And also this question of now that working from home had been somewhat normalized by necessity, what was going to bring people back into offices when we could go back into offices? So all of these conversations were kind of going around, and there was just this feeling also of these like huge challenges that the pandemic had created, also creating these big opportunities to reimagine, to just open up imagining new spaces and sort of readdressing issues that had been there and having the space to think about them in new ways. So it was a really strange and very exciting time to be joining the conversation at Pop House. And basically, more than ever, it just felt like, despite all the logistical changes, there were also these like huge emotional changes in our landscape as a nation, as a world, as a culture. And with the pandemic and with everything going on this summer, if there was any kind of new normal, it was maybe just walking, like being sort of like a walking onion of complicated emotions, just like layer upon layer every day of things that to process, coinciding with the fact that we were sort of cut off from immediate contact with our communities that we normally process them with. So it also felt like whatever returning to work meant, whatever the future of work meant, returning would also entail bringing with us all of these emotions. And that was, so this quote that's on the screen is from one of the essays that Pop House wrote this summer on the future of work. And on this next slide is another quote from the wonderful Chrissy, saying, "One thing that is relevant now more than ever is leading with empathy. It is crucial that we are encouraging team members to find restoration while working both at home and when we are back in the office." So this attention to empathy and to human-centered design was really already a big part of the conversation there. And that was really exciting to me. It really overlapped with my interests as a designer. And basically thinking about what we were gonna bring back and what empathy meant kind of took on this new magnitude that despite human-centered design being an important part of the design conversation for a long time, it had taken on this new level of magnitude with everything we were experiencing. And so my focus became about specifically these feelings that we would be coming back to the workplace with, and how this like challenge and opportunity was an opportunity to kind of radically rethink the culture of feelings in the workplace specifically. So I had this great series by the artist Laura Mathis in mind this summer on radical softness and the ways that we tend to traditionally relate to feelings and kind of how we could start to shift that conversation. And basically thinking through all of that with all the designers at Pop House, there were like all of these moments. And I think the other two presentations we'll see today will show like how every detail of the space and every object in the space can participate in that. But I became really interested in what happens if you make that the like absolute center of the workplace. On this next slide, this book became really important to me this summer in thinking through this, the Proposals for the Feminine Economy, written by Jennifer Armbrust, because she kind of takes a lot of feminist critical frameworks and funnels them into the business world, but is doing that more on the side of like constructing the business itself. And so I was kind of using a lot of her thought as a blueprint for thinking about, okay, what does that look like in 3 dimensions? And what does it mean? Like how when we come back into this workplace, these workplaces that we're imagining this future for, do we insist on them being healing places for healing and processing, and the kind of communal holding of these things? So these principles, I had all these principles in mind, and all these great conversations started going. And basically my design brief for this summer project became, how do you design for an office that has as its like primary function the capacity to hold all of this experience, change, and emotion that we're all experiencing this summer. So here, these are some sketches from the summer. Once we started envisioning this and thinking about the possibilities, this is also, again, in sometime in June, when it seemed clear that whatever the culmination of this was going to be would have to live in a form that could be presented like this over some sort of virtual format, which at first, honestly, was kind of scary for me as someone who likes to work with my hands and make fully realized 3-dimensional objects. It seemed like it was a little confronting to think of the fact that this would have to be presented virtually, but ultimately, and through all these great conversations we were having, it was helping me realize that it was an opportunity to think at a larger scale than I normally do, and envision something that could be a little bit more speculative. So it didn't necessarily have to be a literal functioning object, and also could be at a scale that I didn't have to be able to completely build in a few weeks. So started to expand the sort of vision for the project, and started to kind of bring in all these different elements of different kinds of healing practice, and different kinds of thinking through the rituals of our day-to-day lives as being things that could be held out in the open. So on this next slide, you'll see a sort of schematic of all these different elements that I started to piece together in this like kind of large hybrid object that I started to imagine, which to me became this sort of like emotional kiosk, which was sort of, as we think of these things that we need, these like tangible things that we need in the office, and the ways that we communicate information, the ways that we hold our necessities, it became this sort of like kiosk for all of these things that you can't necessarily tangibly define as needs, but are so necessary, especially as I was saying with all these other layers of emotion. And it became important to me that this thing lived out in the open, so it wasn't kind of like set off in a corner or hidden in a room. It was something that was out in the open for everyone to be like always sort of visually in relationship with, and also that it didn't come to be very specifically functional. So it wasn't meant to describe or prescribe very specific ritual behaviors. Instead, it was meant to kind of operate as to create the space and the tools for people to create, invent, and evolve with their own practices as individuals in the office, but also as groups within the office place who, are once returning to the office, practicing being in that space together again. So it was meant to be something that could kind of continuously take shape and give continuous opportunity for deciding how to hold that day. So this is the object that became of that. It's built, this is at, so I did, of course, still have to make something with my hands, but so this is at 1/2 scale. So in real life, it would be about 7 feet tall and about 8 feet in diameter. So building it at scale was done so that it could be used as basically a prop for a video to describe what the object is, and almost be like a sales pitch for it, which is the ultimate virtual format of this. But before we get to that video, I wanted to show a few behind the scenes, like process shots. So this first one, so you can see here in the shop starting to build this. So all of the material is 2x4s, so it's construction lumber, which I love working with in like a kind of like high design context, because it's a material that's so loaded with information about our built world and with like instructions sort of. And so taking it and distorting it and using it in this other context really allows it to take on these other layers of meaning while still being in this like very kind of fundamental relation to our built world. In this next slide, you can see a bit of the process of shaping it. So it's also this process that I've been developing at school that's kind of both an additive and subtractive process. So you can see on the left kind of build up these rough forms, and then on the right carve them down. So to me, that's also like this way of holding both how things get built and also how things get eroded. So the final form gets found within this kind of constructed form. And in this last slide of the process, you can see some more of the way that the main form got built up and then carved. And so it's all this, they end up being these textures that are created from these regular geometries that are then carved away. And so the ultimate shape of it is kind of discovered through this intuitive and emotional process, which was important to me in this object that is intended for like emotional encounter and emotional holding, that it has this not predetermined surface texture, and that's something that gets discovered intuitively too. And so then this is the final piece, another angle on the final piece. And now I will share with you the video that I made as a sort of infomercial for this unit.
Attunement to feelings, our own and others, guides us to the fulfillment of needs. The ongoing fulfillment of needs is the foundation of a sustainable life and business and world. Each Feelings Processing Center 3000 comes with multiple interchangeable modules for both individual and communal ritual practice. Transform what no longer serves you through the magic of fire. Wash away unwanted things that cling to you through the power of water. Deepen your personal understanding through self-reflection. Accentuate good ideas. And so much more. Imagine recentering your workplace culture on vulnerability, transparency, and the ongoing communal effort of honoring our own and each other's experience of being alive. Thanks to the Feelings Processing Center 3000. As they become known to and accepted by us, our feelings and the honest exploration of them become sanctuaries and spawning grounds for the most radical and daring of ideas. Feelings are technology. Feelings are sources of information. Feelings are medical devices. Feelings are networking tools. Feelings are ancient. Feelings are the future. The future is feelings.
So that's sort of like the final digital product of of my fellowship this summer. I hope it gives everyone a sense of the conversations that we were all having this summer and the ideas that we were working with. And it was such a great experience. I feel like it really, during such a strange time, allowed for this like interesting exploration of something that's sort of between proposal and fantasy and speculative future office. And so that's my presentation today. Thank you so much. And thank you again to Pophouse. And yeah.
Forrest, thank you so much. We had a couple questions in the chat while you were presenting. So I'll just throw them out to you. The first one, radical softness seems to connect to self-compassion, kindness towards the self. Curious if you've explored similar ideas and if that influences your design approach.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question and great point. I think that's really true. And that phrase "radical softness," there's two artists. That artist Laura Mathis that I showed the images of also works alongside this artist B. Oakley, who also has used that term "radical softness" in their title. It's "Radical Softness as a Boundless Form of Resistance." And I think that it definitely, in my schema, I think that it is like equally true that is something that you give to others and also something that you give to yourself, and that they're a total mutual reflection of each other. And I think that definitely influences me. And I think that in this object, it's equally valuable for an individual to approach and engage with, to do that like introspection and self-processing as it is for two or three or a group of people to sort of like commune around and process together. And I think that's a great point, that it is like outward and inward.
That's great. Thank you. We're going to take one more question, and then if we don't get to specifically address your question now, we're going to save a few minutes at the end for additional questions. So one last question for you, Forrest. Will ritual be formalized in the workplace?
It's a great question. I think the syntax is really interesting. Formalized. I think part of this project for me was imagining, what does it look like? I don't know if formalized is exactly the word I would use, but what if it is embedded or institutionalized as something that is like a valid and valuable part of the workday. And I think ritual is also a pretty expansive term. I think you can frame almost any activity as a ritual, but the specific rituals of like holding each other's feelings are things that I think we tend to be able to access more in our home environment, in environments that we feel most safe in and feel as our sanctuary. So so to allow the access for that same kind of like intimate, those sort of like rituals of intimacy in the workplace, I think was part of imagining this project of like, what does that allow for? What are the larger implications of that, and having a space for that really enables that? And how does that sort of like ripple outward in the way that we live in offices and take that back into the rest of our day-to-day lives.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation, and I'll share with you in the chat a couple comments about fantastic proposal. When will the model be available for sale? Love the infomercial. So thank you so much, Forrest. Chrissy, I'm going to turn it back to you to introduce the second presentation.
Yep. So next up, we have Alessandro Pegro. Alessandro is a part of our team as an industrial design intern and is currently completing his bachelor's for industrial design at Lawrence Tech.
Hello, hi. My name is Alessandro Figuera, as Chrissy said, and I've been with Pophouse for a little over a year as a part-time intern, and I'm finishing up my senior year at Lawrence Tech this year. So who is the industrial design team at Pophouse, and why do we exist in interiors firm? So Who are they? We are Chrissy Fahan, who helps out as a design director and assists on a lot of projects, and then myself, who will kind of sit in on a lot of projects as well as an industrial design intern. Go to the next slide. What do? We really do quite a lot here at Pophouse. We sort of fill in the gray spaces in between environmental and interior design, in addition to creating custom lighting, custom furniture, custom millwork, objects, bike racks. You can see some examples of our work on the right-hand side there. We really do try to, we also sit in on a lot of other projects that aren't pure industrial and provide a lot of industrial design thinking to larger scale interior design projects and to help out the environmental team from time to time as well. Next slide. So for this project, we were initially approached in February by a company who wanted to create a series of meditation pods that combined the functionality of a typical workplace privacy pod. I'm sure you've seen those with the glass doors. It's kind of like a little cubicle that you sit inside to take phone calls. But they wanted this to have the calming atmosphere specifically required for meditation, which was a very interesting brief. So next we got to research, and really we discovered that worker wellness really is definitely already becoming, prior to COVID, a large part of office culture, with some offices creating meditation spaces specifically for their employees to improve their well-being at work, like feeling of safeness, as well as improving worker productivity. So for our mood board and what we looked at sort of aesthetically, we were looking at soft colors, calming textures, and simple physical forms that encouraged a feeling of welcoming and safety. But then in the middle of this project, sort of the whole world got turned upside down, and we had to add an entire new functionality to this pod, an entire new aspect to this project. And that is, how can we use this physical product to keep workers safe? So like, in addition to it fulfilling its original intent, the pod now needs to accommodate worker safety, keep them safe from COVID, and also make them feel mentally well as we slowly transition into this new normal buzzword that we are working towards, getting back to the office, half working from home, and it feels different. I'm sure that for some of us who have been back into an office, it feels very unusual, and having a space, a sanctuary, is very important in those times now. We go to so for the new requirements, specifically in terms of keeping the physical safety for our workers, to keep them safe from COVID-19, we need to allow good airflow through this product. A lot of privacy pods are completely closed off, and for the spread of COVID, that is no good. We don't want to create a dangerous space. We want the materials and surfaces to be easily cleanable. So while it's not a main mode of transmission for COVID, we still found it important that the materials and fabrics could be cleanable very easily. And then in addition, we've obviously got to stay 6 feet apart. So we have to encourage distancing through this product as well. So our new goal, essentially kind of piggybacking off of Forrest's theme, the future is yours to feel. We want this pod to encourage users to take advantage of the benefits of this meditation pod in a way that they feel in control of and that makes them feel safe. We want them to have agency in the use of this and not feel like they are at the control of a greater force when inside of this pod, which is something I'm sure we could all use in the COVID pandemic. So we, as industrial designers, we definitely start out with sketching. That is our sort of first step, and especially for me, it's a first base. So we always make sure to put pen to paper to sketch through our ideas. And even though we move quite quickly at Pophouse as an industrial design team, we still make sketching and research a priority for all of our products. So for the usage cycle that we were thinking and sort of settled on was a pod that you could easily set up very quickly and access, so you could have a private workspace or just a private space to sit, relax, and regather yourself during the workday. And then the next step of our workflow as a team is we use a lot of CAD softwares. Personally, for this project, I used Fusion, but we use Rhino and SketchUp when we assist on interiors projects to sort of further our communication with our team members about how our objects are going to fit in the greater spaces of our interior projects, as well as give our fabrication partners very specific details about manufacturing, because everything that we design, obviously, we want to get made and have it exist. So the final design, next slide, is we wanted a very soft pod with flip down seating and flip down desk at desk height, and a very easily closable door that creates sort of a very soft and welcoming environment that you can work in, that you can sit and relax in. You can have private phone calls in. Really, it's a space for you to make your own and to really do what you feel is best inside of there. And obviously, for feasibility, the next slide, we communicate directly with local, we don't fabricate things in-house, but we communicate directly and frequently with local fabrication partners who we have close relationships with that help us bring our design to fruition. So throughout this project, we communicated with fabricators to ensure that this is feasible and manufacturable within a reasonable budget. So while this project currently exists in what I like to call render land, all the digital renders, this is a completely real and feasible product to be made and not just a concept. So you can see with the final design here, we have, this is with the door open and the seat flipped up. And on the next slide, you can see, for this presentation, we've written about this in one of our future of work articles, which are great, check them out. We have a base model of where there is no electricity running through it. It's just a flip down seat and desk at standard heights with supports. But then also we wanted to think about how can we include some, some markups and some higher end things inside of there. So there's lights. On the left here, you can see a push button for electronic closed door, which it doesn't exist on the base model, and a power bank in there as well, so that you can have even more of a personal experience and kind of stay there to make sure your laptop is charged. So these are some of the final detail shots. You can see the size of that Liz with a average size human male sitting in there. You have to include the hand sanitizer shot in any product now, any office product in 2020, and just really some final shots of context and sort of enhanced, like kind of showing off the colors and materials that we imagined for this product. And yeah, well, I want to give a big thank you to Pophouse for trusting me with this project and kind of letting me run a little bit. It was a really awesome experience. I really am happy with what we came up with.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. I have a question for you. So how do you think, in terms of timing, it's been very uncertain when people will return to office spaces. Have you thought about, do you think this is something that would be helpful for companies to consider in an attempt to bring team members back, or something that is farther looking down the road?
I wanted it to sort of play both when we were sort of redesigning it at the COVID phase. I wanted this to provide a safety measure for sort of immediate return to work, but I didn't want it to be something that was going to be thrown away in 12 months and kind of a waste of money to the company after the COVID pandemic ends. I wanted this to be a long-lasting concept that exists to help workers basically after the COVID pandemic and sort of fulfill its original intention as a meditation and privacy pod, regardless of a global pandemic occurring or not.
Right, because we will get beyond it, right? And this is still way into the future. One more question for you. Have you considered putting in built-in speakers into the pod for a more surrounding, calming sound?
That wasn't originally in the scope, but especially for me as a music fan, I would absolutely love to have one of these with full speakers decked out. So especially knowing that we can include some electronics in there, I'm sure that is a feasibility and a custom markup that we could provide.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Alessandro. We appreciate everything that you contribute to our team every day. And this is just one example of the work that you've been doing. So thank you so much. Chrissy, one more presentation.
Yes, I would like to introduce Lee Goodluck. Last but not least, Lee has been with Pophouse since the beginning of the company, and she is our design director for environmental graphic design.
Thank you, Chrissy. So I'm going to talk about this Home Away from Home project, which was one of our most recently completed projects in downtown Detroit. But first, I give you a perspective of our environmental graphic design team and what we bring to projects. So we're a team of 4. We're very passionate about what we do, and we bring wall graphics, dimensional wall installations, wayfinding systems, and signage into spaces for people to enjoy and utilize. And so this variety of space that we're talking about in interior environmental, we believe in our role in helping enhance that part of space. So collaboration areas being very high energy and talking about your culture and your values, while focus space being non-distracting and helping with that moment, so that the variety of spaces helps influence you in the type of work that you're doing. You go to the next slide, we'll be specifically talking about the Chase building. This is located in downtown Detroit. It's right off of Campus Martius. It's a fantastic location, and 10 floors are occupied by the Rocket family of companies, HR department, and mortgage banking teams. They're both really high energy teams. They live the company values, which they call ISMs. There's 20 of them. And we wanted to ensure that there was a space that had this wow experience for them, while also having a variety of spaces for them to be able to have focus and reprieve. And if you go into the next slide, you'll see what this space looked like when we started this job. And I think it's important to show where the beginning stages were of this, especially because this space is loud and there's a lot, and there's a high energy group of people who occupy here, and you come in and there's people on the phones and talking, and there's bright colors. And I've had multiple experiences bringing people into these floors as they looked before and just having a wow moment. And so we wanted to ensure that that still existed. But this is all wow. It's all bright colors. It's all intense energy. And we wanted to ensure that variety of spaces as we move through the project. And into the themes and concepts for the space on the next slide, this home away from home, all in one place. So these team members are putting people in homes. They're mortgage bankers. It's a huge purchase. It's where you spend a ton of your time, as Forrest and Alessandra were talking about this. Reprieve and calm, and wanting to bring that into the workplace and wanting to be able to have these team members experience that. And so this all in one place encompasses that variety that we were looking for. So the wow, the intense, the exciting, while also the calming. And so the overarching statement is home is not a place, but a moment. So creating moments for different types of work, places for team members to gather, to collaborate, to be presenting information, spaces for people to be thinking and taking a moment, maybe phone calls, heads down, focus time, places to belong and feel part of the team and build up team morale. These groups have quite a few touch bases and pump up moments, and then also making sure that there are spaces that are adaptable to the changing needs of these teams. So are there spaces that these team members need to have like a really fun time, a really fun party, but then also be able to transform into something that is different from that and adaptable to the groups within the space. And so for environmental, we focused on ensuring that our piece of the puzzle was this wow entrance moment. So that punch that you saw in the existing space photo, and then the ability to move past that into a more focused collaborative area. And if you go to the next slide, this is the materials palette for the space. So this is generally what we start with environmentally, is this overarching concept that we assessed with building and understanding, and then the materials palette from the interior designers. And so this palette has a very upscale, simplified, toned down pieces that allow for these punchy moments to really stand out, but also for a variety to bring in this excitement that this team was looking for. And so we stick with these color ranges and make sure that we're working with the interior designers for a flawless finish compilation and working together. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see our overarching concept for the environmental location. So this stands alone from the space as a whole and helps influence some of the finished solutions like wall coverings and those types of things. But we specifically built this, I would say, like formula for how we approached graphics in the space. And so the formula of simplified Memphis with exaggerated abstraction starts with this Memphis style of design. It's fun, it's punchy, it has really nice abstracted shapes that can create different vignettes or visions, simplifying that style to ensure that it's an elevated space and can stand the test of time for these team members, and then bringing in familiar influences, which is this home concept for these team members to connect to their clients, and then also the company culture in these 20 isms. So making sure that those are represented throughout the space, which all the way to the right creates this picture. And so this was an inspiration image that we used to convey this concept. And when you look at these shapes, you almost think like tennis court, but there's nothing about this that is tennis court. And it's this artful way of connecting you emotionally to something that's very familiar with you, which is what we wanted to create in these graphics. And on the next page, we pull some inspiration for the client to help solidify that message and that goal and objective. And so these are some images that we pulled and were able to review with our decision makers on to the left, for instance, these vertical wood bars, that looks like blinds, like the blinds that you would find in your home, but it's very sophisticated, it's very elevated, and it's not obviously blinds. And so making sure that we had something that was tied to that familiarity while meeting this Memphis style and working in a corporate space. If you go to the next slide, we'll get into one of the locations and the development of how we came up with this vignette. So this one is your backyard. We started with really brain dumping on what pieces of this puzzle make a backyard and make you feel like you're in a yard and bring that communal energy to your residents, but in a very simplified set. So we made lists, we did some sketches. You see like the fire pit, this gathering space. And on to the next page, you'll see how we started pulling those things together to create this vignette that's very abstracted. And so we start generally in Adobe Illustrator, pulling these shapes together. How are they working as one piece? And to the left, you'll see this large big circle, which is like a sunset with a sun ray. And all the way to the left is these vertical bars with a planter box. And on bottom right is a fire pit. And so these pieces individually read as a half circle and a triangle, but when you paint the full picture, you're creating this very lovely vignette that represents this backyard, and you can experience it once and then build that narrative, maybe see it not connected immediately. We then pull it into SketchUp to discuss the dimensions, and then Adobe Dimension to render that out. And so talk about how are these pieces working together? What's the adjacencies of the furniture in front of it? Once again, this is the entrance moment into the space. So you come off the elevator and you have this punchy moment and you move past it, but it also has a seating arrangement that could be used for collaboration, for waiting for a meeting. Maybe you enjoy sitting in this type of seating setting to be able to work on your laptop or take calls. And so making sure that our clients are very familiar with what they're going to experience. So we work with our vendors. We worked with Jiffy Signs and Detroit Wallpaper on this project to bring this to life. And on the next page, you'll see what this looks like in the final iteration and once it was installed. So again, that seating arrangement, that light above, and then this punchy wow branding moment and moving past that into a more focused space. So to the left and the right is open office, which is a much more simplified palette, but allows for that focus and not the visual noise that could happen when you're trying to like really get your work done in the office setting. You see how the printed pieces and the acrylics all come together to paint the picture of this backyard setting. And we'll go through some of the other locations throughout this. So it is 10 floors and it was expanded throughout the building. And so to the left, you see a 2D wall application with a rocket logo on top of it, ensuring these branding moments are coming in. So the pieces we just talked about this home vignette, and all other locations really represent the company isms and an abstracted view into that, which you'll see a little bit later. We have a couple more pictures. On to the next slide. This is a second vignette. So how that language can be expanded throughout the building and making sure this visual brand for the space is reflected throughout all floors and very exciting for the team members. So this is your front porch. To the left is your door. You have a planter box, a window with a shutter, and then this nice seating arrangement in front of it and this guest entrance moment. On to the next slide. This is that open office view. So giving you more perspective of what does that focus space look like in relation to these large branded moments in the simplified Memphis style. And then another isms graphic to the right. So each graphic is completely unique to that ism or that vignette, and it flows throughout the entire building. And last but not least, we'll see this in a 2D application. So I wanted to ensure that everyone got a full picture of these isms graphics. So these shapes that you saw in the 3D application, bringing them into a 2D and then describing a company value. So this is the we are the they, and each side has equal parts to represent this value and this important piece of the Quicken Loans culture.
We thank you so much. So exciting to showcase this project and all of the work that's been put into it really over the last couple years. A question for you. So as we are talking to clients over the last 6 or 7 months, so much of the focus has been on how do you space out the office? How do you create social distancing? And this and everything that you've just highlighted is very much focused on, like you said, the culture and the brand. Can you talk to us about why that's so important in office space now?
Absolutely. I think that as the focus of the workplace changes and people are coming to the office for different reasons, you'll really want to have these moments of ingrained culture and reminders as people are coming into the space to really rally around a belief and these values that are very important to you. So being sure that you're able to punch up this culture and talk about it while the team members are there and be excited about it and make sure that it's really celebrated in spaces.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been so robust, so exciting to hear from Forrest and Alessandro and Lee. If you have questions for any of them or us, Chrissy or myself, please throw them in the chat. We have a couple minutes here at the end for any additional questions before we wrap up. Oh, I have one here for Forrest from Linda. Can Forrest redesign my music studio, which is always a sanctuary of analog and digital inspiration and feeling?
Yes. That's the quick answer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I have a question actually for Lee. How do the plants on the entrance, are they watered through like an architectural system, or is it just like a hand watering that allows them to continue to grow?
Those buddies are plastic. So we made the decision with the client and fabricators for maintenance to ensure that we had fake plants, because real plants in offices, biophilia, there's a lot of maintenance that comes with that, and especially in this location, ensuring you're not damaging the wall graphic and this piece while you're maintaining those plants. So we worked with Plantera to acquire these, and they had some really beautiful artificial plants that I'm glad tricked you.
They did.
Well, great. Thank you all so much. And thank you for joining us today. We are really excited to share the exploration and research that our team is consistently doing. If you have additional thoughts on all of these topics, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you. We are curious as a company and always looking to learn and grow and really incorporate new ways of thinking into our work. So we would love to connect with you and really learn more. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
There was one question popped up about the pods that I'll quickly answer. It says, how would you sanitize the space in between uses? And we had our interiors team to pull easily cleanable fabrics to make sure that you can easily like wipe it down and clean it. So honestly, it's actually as simple as taking some wipes to it, wiping it down, and then it is sanitized. So didn't want that to get messy.
Thank you, Alessandro. That popped up, I think, after, or I missed it. I'm sorry about that.
I think it was put into the Q&A section instead of the chat, which is fine.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you guys. Do you want to hop off this and hop back into a call? for a second?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.